Hello there, guys. This is Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, and today I'm very excited to be doing the original ktropeathon tag here on the channel today. So let's just jump into it. I'm so excited for you guys to try out this tag for yourselves because I want to hear all of your answers to it. Okay, so first of all, our first prompt is IBS, which all of the prompts are going to be lovable tropes that we've identified in Korean media, popular media mostly, like K-drama and K-pop and webtoons and stuff like that. So our first prompt is IBS because in a lot of K-dramas, they talk about IBS. Like, it's something that you just talk about in Korea. It's not like in America, we don't talk about like diarrhea, but in K-drama, they do. And it's used for humor frequently. It just comes up. I had to talk about this, and maybe it's because they eat spicy food a lot. I don't know. Maybe they all have IBS and they eat spicy food, so they have IBS flares a lot. I don't know. But it's hilarious regardless. So the prompt is IBS, a book that gave you a stomach ache, like from embarrassment or stress. So for this one, I'm going to have to go with Shogun by James Clavell. This was recently made into a TV show. There's something that happens in the first episode that was too intense for me, so I decided to try the book and see if I could handle the book. But no, the book was too intense for me as well. So they're both too intense for me. I cannot handle medieval torture scenes. I can't even really tell you what the book is about. It's a historical fiction novel about a group of pirates, the captain of whom is an English pirate. Is he a pirate or are they just traders? I don't know. I wasn't following it super well, honestly. I'm not really a historical fiction person. I definitely want to be better about reading historical fiction, but I just don't really normally read it. So anyways, yeah, they run aground in a storm in Japan, and most of them have died. There's been like fleets of ships that have died. They run aground in Japan, and there's like 7 of them left or something. Can you even like run a ship with 7 people? I don't know. But anyways, and yeah, basically they are now captive in Japan, and there's a torture scene that happens, and it's so intense that I had to stop reading it because I actually couldn't. It interrupted my sleep. It gave me anxiety. Number 2, Ult Bias, which is a favorite author you can't stop talking about or obsessively reading. That's the prompt. So an Ult Bias, what that means is, if you're watching this tag, you probably know what all these terms are, but a bias is your favorite, like in a group or an actor. So you would say, in this lineup of 8 singer, dancer, songwriter, rappers from this group, my bias is this one. So yeah, because they're your favorite. You might love the whole group, but there's just one that you're always drawn to individually the most. That's your bias. Your Ult Bias is the one that you love above all others that you just cannot stop thinking about and talking about, and you just would follow them anywhere. If they're acting in a new drama, you watch that drama. It doesn't even matter what streaming service it's on, you're going to get access to it. If you need a VPN, you're going to get a VPN. If they're doing solo music, you're following their Instagram account, you're following their Twitter updates, you might be paying to text them. Like, you will pay extra money to make sure you get their photo card. That's your Ult Bias. So, as far as authors, Ult Biases, I would have to say the author that for the longest amount of time she's been like my Ult Bias, that I cannot stop talking about her, has got to be Dorothy L. Sayers, because I just love everything that I read from her. And I have ever since college introduced me to her. I have here Busman's Honeymoon, which is so funny because I actually haven't read this one. I've read every book in the series except this one. So I need to do that. Maybe I should. But I think I was reading these mysteries at a different time in my life. I don't really read mystery fiction anymore, but when I was really having trouble sleeping a lot, I would pick up a mystery because it wasn't my normal genre. So I wasn't like thinking overly hard about it and analyzing it. I could just enjoy it. So I read all of the mysteries multiple times, except for Busman's Honeymoon. I don't know why I never finished it. But anyways, I should actually read this. Like, it's the last one. It's after the two main characters. Like, there's two love interests. Like, starting in book 4, I think, they start kind of tentatively, not dating, because the woman will absolutely not date the man because she's just come off a really bad relationship. So for years, you're just like waiting for them to get together. And finally, at a certain point, they do. And this is their honeymoon story, where, of course, they end up solving a mystery because they can't take a honeymoon without having somebody get murdered. Like, it just would not be a Dorothy L. Sayers story if that did not happen. A Lord Peter Wimsey mystery. So I love the Lord Peter Wimsey mysteries. They are not all created equal, but I love them all. Like, I like the way she writes them. I think she's really witty and smart. And I love everything that she writes. She's a theologian, she's a poet, she's translated Dante, and written mysteries. She's written plays, she's acted in plays. She's done everything. And I am obsessed with her. I think she's got to be my Ult Bias, I would say. Yeah. Next, spicy food. We all know that Koreans love their spicy food. 청양고추 vibe. Like, they are all about the spicy. So, okay, the prompt is a book or author with a very strong flavor. So I thought of a couple for this. There's, of course, Salman Rushdie, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's an Indian-British author. He wrote the Satanic Verses. I believe he got stabbed for his, talking about I'm not actually sure why he got stabbed, but I feel like it was a terrorist. Like, somebody stabbed him because he was talking about Islam, maybe? I think that's what I'm remembering hearing. But anyways, I'm going to listen to his audiobook. There's an audiobook that's really new, and it's there's so many holds on it, but it's called Knife. It's about him getting stabbed. I don't actually like his work. I tried reading Midnight's Children, which, on one hand, I really liked the mystery element of it. It was interesting, but I don't know. His style is it's trying to really grab you with sexual innuendos and descriptions, and that's his thing, to grab you in and grab your attention. And to me, I find that kind of obnoxious when authors do that. I find it obnoxious when they do it with swearing. Shock value, that's what I'm going for. He really goes for the shock value to keep pulling you back in, but after a while, it's just it stops working. And so it stopped working for me with Midnight Children. I thought it was too long and meandering. And even though I was interested in it, I ended up DNFing it. It just wasn't for me. So I don't actually like his writing. At least I didn't Midnight's Children. And that was the one that sounded most interesting to me. But I don't know. Maybe the concept was cool. His concepts are cool. It's kind of like Neil Gaiman. His concepts are cool, but I don't like the execution. But anyways, I'm excited to listen to his memoir about getting stabbed. Next, and Flannery O'Connor, of course, we have to mention Flannery O'Connor, who is maybe the author with the strongest, possibly, taste. She has a very distinctive flavor. And it's called Southern Gothic. But to her, I think it was more like funny realism. She didn't feel like she was being gothic. She was like, this is just what I see. And in order for, what she said somewhere, in order for people to hear me, I have to shout, something like that. In order for people who aren't believers, especially, because she was a very strong Catholic, she's like, you have to shout and get their attention. And so her stories are usually a shout. They're usually pretty controversial and divisive, and I love them. I love her. I love this flavor in contrast to Salman Rushdie. Okay, next. That's the thing with a really strong flavor, is sometimes it's strong in the wrong way for you, and she is strong in just the perfect right way for me. Weird, dark, but still sensible. It's eminently sensible and funny. It's so funny. Her style is funny. Her stories are usually not funny. Her stories are usually tragedies. But yeah, anyways, her tragedies are bringing her characters to the point where they recognize they need God. Like that's what happens in a lot of her stories. It's like really evil or like messed up people, or even just average people, are refusing to see their need for God, and something happens in their life where they have a chance to recognize him or not before they die a gruesome death. Which might not sound, but it might not sound like your cup of tea, but at least try it first. I know that A Good Man is hard to find is probably what people mostly would recommend. That's like her most famous story, I think. And I would say A Good Man was hard to find. I did not understand for the longest time. I would say start with Everything That Rises Must Converge. That one for me was a revelation. So good. I love The River. There's so many good ones. So anyways, what's my favorite one though? My favorite one, it's about a boy with a cast on his foot, and he believes he's like an evil little boy. He's like actually evil, but like he is redeemable versus this man who's trying to be like a do-gooder but without Jesus. I don't know. It's like, it's such a good story. I wish I could remember. Okay, I need to look up the name of that. If I remember, I will put it down below in the description because it's such a good story. It's my favorite. It's so good. Okay. Next, I mean, Flannery O'Connor, to be honest, could also be my Ult Bias, but Dorothy Sayers wrote more, so there's just more to talk about. Brandon Sanderson could also be an Ult Bias because I talk about him all the time as well, and I read all of his books. I haven't read them all yet. He writes so fast, I can't keep up with him, but I don't know. There's lots of authors. C.S. Lewis, I love C.S. Lewis so much. So yeah, there could be a lot of Ult Biases, but I chose Dorothy L. Sayers because I just want everybody to know about her. Okay, next, healing. So this is really cute. When you're listening to Korean being spoken, the word healing, you will learn it. Like they have a lot of Konglish words, which are like English words, but spelled with Korean letters and with like a Korean accent. And so healing camping, or, you know, that they'll use that term healing in with a Korean accent, and it's just the cutest thing. So healing, a book that you found emotionally healing. Now, this would probably not work for everybody, but for me, going dark, I actually find can be really healing for me, because that's sometimes what I feel like life is like. And seeing an author acknowledge it and make something out of it, I have found more meaning about life and about suffering in particular in stories and books. And I think that's a big reason why I love Flannery O'Connor, because she explores suffering so in depth. But I think Lamentations in the Bible is really dark. Like you're reading it and you might think, my goodness, why am I reading this? Why am I doing this to myself? It's really dark. Like children getting, murdered. I mean, it's like really, really dark. It's about the Israelites getting conquered, getting sieged, and then conquered. And so the people are lamenting. The Book of Lamentations is a lament, a book of poetry, lament poetry to God. And they're basically saying, why did you allow this to happen to us, God? But it's the journey that you go on as you read that. It was like, sometimes it's okay to just have really strong emotions and share those with God. Like, he can handle it. If you're really angry at God, tell him, talk to him, Don't just ice him out, because it's healing for you and it's healing for your relationship with God. He can handle all of your anger and pain and darkness. And sometimes it's just okay to tell God all those things. And that's what Lamentations is. So that for me was a bit of an emotional breakthrough, because for me, emotionally, I was always trying to be like positive and joyful in suffering. But, sometimes that's just not realistic, especially when you're dealing with other people who are going through stuff. You have to just be like, yeah, that sucks. That's terrible. I'm really sorry you're going through that. And you mourn with them. You weep with them. And that's not wrong. That's actually healing and good. So that's why Lamentations is my healing book, but that might not be a healing book for everybody. I know a lot of people that do not feel that way about Lamentations, and they are also Christians that I love. So, it's a taste, a matter of personal taste. Okay. Next we have Maknae, which is the baby of every music group is called the Maknae. The baby of every family is called the Maknae, which it basically means the youngest. So the youngest, so of course a coming of age story. So here I have one of my very favorite coming of age stories, and I'm rereading these right now, which is why I have to talk to you about them. Protector of the Small by Tamora Pierce. Have I really been describing what these books are about? I don't know, but this series is about a girl who wants to become a lady knight, and she is the first girl to go through the system where everybody knows that she's a girl. And she's a page in this book. So this is the second book in the series. Yeah, it's such a good series. So we're following Keladri, and she's just such like a really hardworking, no nonsense, unemotional like affect. Like she's got a very flat affect, but inside she has emotions, but she just deals with them on her own and more healthily, like the most introverted person you might ever meet, you know, kind of a person. But reading her from her perspective, you just can't help admiring her as she grows up. She seems so grown up from the beginning. And like, I know kids who are like that, who have been put in situations that kids shouldn't have been put into, and they are very adult from a young age. And that's kind of what Keladri reminds me of. She did go through some really hard stuff as a kid, but to her, they excite her and make her stronger thinking about it, and she's just such a strong person. So yeah, I would follow Keladri anywhere. She's my favorite character created by Tamora Pierce for sure, but the side characters are also where it's at. Honestly, her friend Neil is so funny. He's like 7 years older than most pages, I think. And so their friendship is very strange. The first girl going through this whole system that everybody knows is a girl, along with like this old, like a much older page going through it all. He's such a smart, what was the term I was going to go for there? A smart aleck. That's the term I was thinking of. It's like, the term just left my mind. He was such a smart aleck, but I love Neil. He's great. So, but we also meet some other amazing characters in this series. Raoul of Golden Lake, who ends up being like a really important character in the later books. So good, so good, so good. Okay. Moving on. Aegyo, which is cuteness. This is something that I think that Korea and Japan are really good at Aegyo. They understand cuteness. They understand how to be cute, how to do cute, how to make cute things. And this is something that I feel like I struggle with America. I don't think America understands cute as much anymore. Like, we're in our sexy era in America, which is fine, but I also like love cute at heart. I'm a cute person at heart. So, that's why part of why I really love Korean content is they just understand cute so well. So cute, a cute book you loved. What did I have down here? I don't read cute books very often, so I had to really think about this. This was a little bit hard. I am watching a K-drama though. K-dramas know how to do cute. They're so cute. I'm watching a K-drama called Lovely Runner right now that's super cute, but also like super funny. Highly recommend. It's on Viki, and it's about a girl who she has lost the use of her legs, and she just basically doesn't want to live anymore. And like the opening sort of meet cute, there's several meet cutes throughout the series. That's very common with K-dramas, but the opening meet cute was so gripping to me. She's like in a hospital right after she lost the use of her legs, and she calls in a radio station randomly calls her number, and she answers, and she's on the air, and there's a K-pop singer on the air, and he's like, "Hi, do you know who I am?" Like basically she's the winner, you know, of this. Like they called her, "Do you know who I am?" And she's like, "No, and I don't care. Just leave me alone." And he ends up, before she hangs up, telling her, "Thank you for living. Just thank you so much for living." Because in Korea, I've never lived in Korea, but from what I've heard, ableism is something that might be encountered quite a lot in Korea. So I think accommodations for disabilities is in a different stage, I think, than it is in America, where they try to make everything very accommodating here. But I think it's not yet there in Korea, because Korea is so newly industrialized. They're still working out a lot of stuff like that. That didn't come into America for a long time as well. So for her, I think, and it is such like a capitalistic culture where if you can't like work, your life is over. That's kind of what it feels like just from an outsider observing. And I've heard some insiders talk about stuff like this, like the work weeks in Korea are like way higher than 40 hours, so for her, losing the use of her legs was like a death sentence. But the singer on the radio just tells her, thank you for living, and that changes her life, that somebody thanked her just for like surviving, being alive, keeping going. He's like trying to give her a reason to live, and it works. And it's such an amazing opening scene. So I definitely recommend The Lovely Runner. Very cute. I love it. But another cute actual book, I would say Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is pretty cute. So it's technically a romance, but it's like a very slow moving romance. So I didn't even realize it was going to be a romance. That's how slow moving it is. So this is following a girl named Sophie, who is, it says it in the opening line. It's like a fairy tale opening. In the land of Inguri, where such things as 7-league boots and cloaks of invisibility really exist, it is quite a misfortune to be born the eldest of 3. Everyone knows you are the one who will fail first and worst if the 3 of you set out to seek your fortunes. So it's like very fairy tale opening. She ends up getting a job. She gets cursed to be an old woman. So she's a young person in an old woman's body. Which fits, honestly, because as you can tell just from this first line, she's like kind of grumpy. Like her outlook on life is pretty grumpy. And so it's now just like her body matches her outlook is kind of the idea of not that all old people are grouchy and grumpy, but she ends up getting a job as like the cleaning woman in the castle of a wizard and being his housekeeper. So it's really funny and cute and all over the place. It's absolutely wild, but her humor is just perfectly for me, Diana Wynne Jones. So yeah, I want to reread this. I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to reread this soon. Okay, next, Piggyback. So this is also something that happens in K-dramas. It's piggybacks. Piggybacks for any reason and all reason, because it's super romantic, right? So a book that carried you through a difficult time. I was trying to find my copy of Jane Eyre and I literally could not find it. Oh, there's All Creatures Great and Small. It's on my pile of books that's holding up my camera right now. That's probably where Jane Eyre is, honestly, somewhere in this pile. So anyways, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Yeah, that's correct. Charlotte Bronte. That book can pull me out of a slump for sure. It's so engrossing, especially like the first 2/3. The last third, take it or leave it, it's fine. But I mean, the ending is great, but then like the last third before you get to the ending is a little bit like slow. But I love the first 2/3. It's so gripping. And there's definitely been times where I just felt really blue and I just pulled out Jane Eyre and it just got lost in it. So that's a book that got me through a hard time. I can remember specifically before we knew what was causing my stomach flares, it was so upsetting every time I would have one. And I remember just laying on the floor and just crying. And then Jane Eyre was like, I was laying on the floor and I could see Jane Eyre in my bookcase and I just pulled it out and I just read it for like hours. This was still when I was in college, I think. So I was stressed out anyways, but it was just so comforting. So anyways, okay, next, Truck of Doom, a book that absolutely floored you. So Truck of Doom, is this something that happens in K-dramas? I'm not sure where this trope came from. This was a Tiffany prompt, so she'll probably be able to explain it in her tag video. So go watch Tiffany's tag video so she can explain this. I feel like I had an idea of where this came from. But anyways, she wrote, it could be a plot twist or just a book that was unexpectedly incredible in a different way. So I'm just going to say The Tale of Genji here. I did not expect to do... to be reading the story of a sexual predator and all his conquests. That was not what I was expecting from The Tale of Genji. It is like a soap opera, but from like the worst it's like an anti-hero perspective, and that floored me. I just could not believe that somebody thought it was a worthwhile idea to write 1,300 pages about the exploits of a sexual predator, mostly from his point of view. That floored me, and I don't get it at all. Why would someone do that? I don't get it. Okay, moving on before I start ranting about this. I've been ranting about this a lot on Instagram. I'm doing daily vlogs over there, in case you're wondering. You should follow me on Instagram for sure. Okay, next, number 9, Narcolepsy, a book that put you to sleep. All Creatures Great and Small, like I said, is on my pile over here. This literally put me to sleep, but in the best way possible. I loved All Creatures Great and Small. It's about a veterinary... He's a veterinarian, basically. Early veterinarian. Is this pre-war? Interwar? I can't remember exactly when the year is. If I could just pull out the book, I could tell you, but I'm sorry, I can't. Anyway, about a veterinarian treating animals in the UK. He's a Scotsman, and he has moved over to England to be a veterinarian. And the people in the book, it's like called a memoir because it's about his life experiences as a veterinarian. It's not a novel. However, the county where he is working is like a fake county because he's trying to protect identities, and like the names and everything have been changed because he's trying to protect identities. But it's really about his experiences in a particular English county as a veterinarian very early on, before veterinary medicine has really developed really strongly. So it was fascinating hearing his like medical details about how he treats the animals, and also really funny, like the people that you encounter in this book are so funny. It was just so, this was actually like heartwarming in a lot of ways, but also sometimes really intense. Like some of the scenes are intense to be reading about, an animal in pain or an animal who can't breathe, and you know, some of it is really intense, but it literally was perfectly, it was like the right amount of like tension and sleepy timeness for me to put me to sleep. But it's hard to find a book that's good at that, so it was just exactly what I wanted and needed, and I loved it. It was so good. Next, Joseon, a book that you recently read that is set in the past. So I'm gonna have to go with the Eagle Drums for this one, which unfortunately I didn't enjoy. Here, I'll hold it up for you so that you know what I'm talking about. This was a Newbery Award winner. I cannot pronounce the author's name. I apologize. I was so disappointed with this one. I actually just listened to it on audiobook, so I don't know, maybe it would be better reading it physically. But primarily, I do read by audiobook. I do read physically, but I read a lot more by audiobook. Yeah, this is it Inuit? Or it's like an Alaskan folklore retelling of the Great Feast, or it's some kind of story it's around a feast, and it's about a boy who lives with his parents, and his older brother has maybe two of his older brothers, or his dad and his brother. Anyways, they've disappeared, and so it's just him being kind of the only child left, and his parents just dote on him, but he needs to go on his own and take a trip, like a hunting trip. And he's like, no, I'm going to be safe. Stop worrying about me. And he ends up getting picked up by this Alaskan god, like this eagle god, and sort of being trained in all of these things. I don't know. It's to me, it was it's not that there was no characterization, but I did not care about the characters at all. It was very empty in that sense to me. There was no emotional connection at all for me. So that was really disappointing. I really wanted to love it, but it just wasn't, like, I just couldn't find it in myself to care. But I bet that somebody who has a connection to this tradition would eat it up and just totally love it. Because there's been books like that for me too, where like I just really connected with it in one sense and other people didn't. So like Junher, I forget what there was a book set in Joseon, which I was thinking about when I created this prompt. by Junher that I really just enjoyed so much on audiobook. And everybody else who read it didn't like it, except for like Yoon, my girl. She loved it too. But I connected with it because the setting of Joseon, Korea in the Red Palace, that's what it's called. It's set in a palace and it's about like a mad prince, and so there's like a murder mystery. Like, did the mad prince murder someone? Like, I loved it and I connected with it. This one didn't do it for me, but for somebody else it really might. Okay. Next, we have Meetcute. Oh yeah, did I say, I didn't really explain. So narcolepsy, in K-dramas, people just fall asleep in the most awkward of positions because it's romantic, or it's a chance for some like romantic thing. Like, they'll fall asleep like this, you know, and stuff like that. Or, you know, I don't know. They fall asleep in strange, funny ways frequently in K-drama. So that's a K-drama prompt. And then Joseon, that is also a K-drama prompt, honestly. There's a lot of K-dramas set in the Joseon period because it was it was like super lengthy period, and it's fascinating. It reminds me a lot of Victorian England, honestly. There's a lot of K-dramas set then, and I just love it. It's so interesting. So, Meetcute, a book about which you have a fun story to share. For example, how you found it, what you thought about the cover versus the contents, etc. So there's a lot of books I could have chosen for this because, of course, if you're on BookTube, you have a lot of fun memories with books. But I'm going to say Midnight Sun because I read this series when I was a teenager, the Twilight series, and I would have done anything to get my hands on this book. I really wanted to read it. It came out when I was already long past childhood and teenhood, and I was into adulthood, and I didn't read it until January of this year when Victoria sent it to me for Christmas in December, and then we went on the most perfect vacation of our lives to the Dominican Republic, and we just sat in the sun by a pool or by the beach and read every day. And so I just sat there and read Midnight Sun every day, which is why it's so messed up, because it was humid and wonderful and sunny, and there's probably sunscreen on it, and yeah. So this is just one of my favorite reading experiences, definitely of this year, maybe more. I don't know. It was, oh dear, dropping stuff. Such a good experience. So thank you so much for this, Victoria. I loved it. Okay, next, Hallyu, a Korean book, or a book which Korea influenced you to pick up. So there's so many of these, but let's talk about In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. So I picked this up because when I was researching North Korea, there was a South Korean woman that I just heard talking, and I was reading the translations, and she was talking about, or maybe I was researching learning the Korean language, because she was talking about how Yeonmi Park is an example of a Korean woman who learned English because she just had a story that she needed to tell. It was a burning story that she had to tell the world, and so she learned English to tell her story of how she escaped from North Korea. So this is Yeonmi Park's story of how she escaped from North Korea. And I picked it up on that woman's recommendation, and I'm so glad that I did. I've read several now North Korean defector memoirs, and they're always so powerful, and I just feel like my brain is expanding by reading about their experiences. So this was great. Finally, K-Trope, our last prompt, a book that you would recommend as perfect for K-Tropeathon. This is gonna come as no surprise because I recommend this in like every K-Tropeathon video ever. Come Back by Lynn Ashwood and Rachel Rose. One of my top 2 favorite K-pop novels. The other one is K-Pop Confidential, and I can't remember the author's name, but I love them both. But this one was one that it was a favorite that I shared with Jenny. Jenny told me about it. I'm rereading it right now. It's perfect for K-Tropeathon, especially this year because we have a comeback prompt and a We Love Jenny prompt. So this could cover either or both of those prompts for K-Tropeathon. So I hope you'll pick it up. And so this is about Emery from the group Neon. That's not a real group, but We are guessing that it's based on NCT because their name is Neoculture Technology. And they have a similar kind of story where they created like a new sound. It's a very experimental sound. NCT 127 has a very experimental sound. And this book is about the journey of the group, you know, after they're popular, but they weren't popular in the beginning. That's when Emery met a fan in the audience. There was a fan that made him want to keep making music even though the group was struggling, and it's about the story of how they meet again, like over a year later, I think it is. So yeah, I'm really excited to be reading this again, and I hope you guys will pick it up. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching this video. And there's another one I meant to also talk about. There's a brand new book coming out very soon, October 1st, called No Rules Tonight. I'm bringing it up for you guys. It's a graphic novel. I actually have the arc, so hopefully I'll be reading it over the course of July, so that I can give you guys a review, but by Ryan Estrada. So the first book, Banned Book Club, was one of my favorites of last year, about the importance of understanding concepts and not banning concepts because you're afraid of like what about influencing people negatively with those concepts. It's about really reading to learn and growing up, and it's so good. So this is supposed to be with some of the same characters, also memoirical. Is that a word? Memoir-ish. It's sort of a memoir following Kim Hyun-suk, the same character who was in Banned Book Club, but it's on Christmas Eve. Is it Christmas Eve? I think it's Christmas Eve. And it's more cartoony for sure, but it's also in color, which is really exciting. The first book was not in color. This one's in color. So it definitely looks different. But in Korea, I think it said in the year 1980, or maybe in the 1980s. It was a very strict dictatorship in South Korea at the time. But on Christmas Eve, there was no rules. You could go have fun. That was a night when people could let loose and not be following the rules. So that's what the title is from, I think. So I'm really excited to check this out. And because this is a tag, I obviously need to tag some folks. So I'm sure that Dia from Novel Idea and Crystal from Fiber Artsy are already going to be tagged, but just in case, I'm tagging them. And I'm also going to tag Emma the Bookish Princess in case she's in the mood for a tag, because I know she also is a fan of Korea, like Dia and Crystal. And I also wanted to tag V from the Sassy Library Fox, because I know that she is ARMY. And anybody else who feels like doing this tag, please do it. So that is it, guys. And I hope that you will do this tag and let me know in the comments. Answer any of the questions. I want to hear your answer to any of the questions in the comments if you're not going to actually do the tag. Take care until next time. Bye.